Hello, everyone, and welcome to Void Jumpers Episode 2, titled Scattered Histories. We're going to be doing things a little bit differently today, but before we start, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the system that we'll be using. We'll be playing Monster of the Week, created by Michael Sands. It's a game system based on the Powered by the Apocalypse of mechanics. This will be an actual play stream, but our focus will be on the characters and the narrative. So we have bent some rules, broken others, and created a slew of our own, so forgive us of these sins. Last week, we had our first session, and we met everybody and got a taste of the galaxy before jumping onto a dropship and heading towards the Preserve. We learned that our party's mission is to escort Bryn, a sorcerer, down to the Preserve to meet, a summoner, down to the Preserve to meet a fellow summoner and learn about the diplomatic relationships required when dealing with the Company, a multi-planet corporation in charge of the resources of the solar system. On the way down to the planet, there was an explosion of bloom energy, the energy associated with plants, that knocked the dropship out of the sky. There was a bit of trouble after that. We saw our big bruiser Rex get a little flustered. Luckily, she got her shit together and threw some parachutes to her friends. We also saw the first ever intergalactic people's elbow executed by Tag, the parallel, as he jumped out of the ship and bombed through the windshield. And then we saw the professor save a robot. It was a very heroic maneuver and jump to safety. And they all managed to survive because of Rex's maneuver with the parachutes. They then landed on the surface of the planet. Rex had a little bit of trouble getting out of the trees, but everybody was okay. There was a moment towards the end of the episode in which Bryn, our summoner, made contact with the energy source of the planet. And it was different than she's accustomed to. Normally, a planet is a wellspring of energy that's overflowing, difficult to even make a dent in as far as resources go, and ones that are usually welcoming, though volatile. But this time, the planet itself seemed to be in distress, as though it were holding its breath. And while she had access to the elemental energy therein, it was very difficult to get a handle on. We then saw Tag, who is her squire, for lack of a better word, and bound to her until death or dismissed, also tap into the energy of that planet, except he was unable to locate it. Instead, he found a darkness inside, one that was constricting the planet's energy and siphoning it away and making a dent that registered into the resources of the planet. And when he saw it, the darkness looked back and saw him too. And that's where we left off, in a forest, an endless jungle on the surface of the Preserve around the wreckage of a spacecraft. I'm going to bring everybody in now, because we're going to be doing things a little bit differently today, but here's the rest of the crew. We are down our summoner today, so we're actually going to do something a bit in reverse. Normally, in a tabletop RPG, you spend a lot of time on the first session creating characters and establishing lore. We decided to skip that and just jump right into the action and give you a taste of the world and the people in it and how things are handled. Now that you've met these people and you've gotten a taste of what they're capable of, we're going to dive backwards into their history and find out a little bit more about each of them, doing a series of improvised scenes. We're going to be writing the lore to this world right in front of you. We know a few of the elements, but really just the framework of how things work. And so today we're going to be naming things, discovering them for ourselves, and exploring the themes of this story and this world, the relevant character information that kind of sculpted the people as you see them today, and hopefully just have some cool stuff happen. But we don't really know what's going to happen. We've just worked with each other a lot. We've done a lot of improv, and we have a good time creating these worlds. And we thought it would be much more fun for you, the audience, if you were here for it, instead of us doing it behind closed doors and being selfish with that knowledge. We wanted to create it right here in front of you.
Hey, that sounds pretty cool, Jesse.
Thanks.
Good luck, man.
Sounds like we don't know what we're doing.
I'm excited.
We're
We're
going
going for a wild ride.
Benchmark to the best shows. I have no idea what's going to happen next.
And me neither. We're going to go through each and everybody just kind of one at a time. I thought it would be fun in this moment, and we'll do a bit more of this character to character next week when we have Bryn, our summoner, back. But I just wanted to take a second to have each of you tell me about one moment from last week's episode that stuck with you, or if you wanted to just make sure that it doesn't get forgotten, as we move forward into some backstories. You want to start us off, Trin? Rex?
With our character specifically, or things that we observed others doing?
I don't think that there needs to be one or the other.
Are you saying spring break, no parents, no rules, cake for breakfast?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I like to hear.
Okay. Rex, why don't you start us off?
Sure. I think this is more of a collection of little teeny moments that I remember, but I remember the professor's little device just coming out and looking around, and that really delighted me for some reason. I remember the interaction between the parallel and the summoner, where she handed him some pie, and he was delighted by the moonberry pie. He had never had it before. I thought that was very sweet. I remember Rex freezing with terror when the dropship was no longer powered, as the wave of power was sweeping towards them, and not knowing what to do. And
is that something that happens to Rex often?
I would say it happens more than I'd like to admit that it does.
Okay.
And that a lot of the actions that come out of it, some of the times when Rex is taking action, it is to rid herself of that feeling of not knowing what's coming next and wanting to feel anything other than scared.
Okay. Because you're what we're calling a problem solver for the company. It's almost as if you were a mercenary that has become salaried. Somebody who's going to go out and take on the most brutal and unforgiving missions, the ones that nobody wants to talk about, the black book stuff. And so I imagine freezing up is working against you in a lot of that.
It certainly is.
Perhaps today we will address why this is a problem for Rex, especially for somebody who is in a job that is so demanding.
Sounds great.
What about you, Tag?
I'm going to expand slightly on a moment that Trin mentioned. So we have this summoner, this all-powerful magical being destined to lead planets. And in the lore of this world, we've decided, or we've discovered, that every summoner has what's called their parallel. Like Jesse said, it's sort of a squire. So we saw last week Tag meeting his parallel for the first time, his summoner. And we saw a young kid who was incredibly nervous about the road that lay ahead of him, a road of servitude and honor bound to a greater force. You know, you hear all-powerful magical being, that's pretty intimidating. And what we learned was that this summoner, Bryn, was pretty freaking cool and down to earth and kind, and very much welcomed Tag into her world. Not necessarily as an equal, because that's not the reality. That's not what their status is, but as a peer, potentially a friend. She approached him with compassion and a kind of capricious nonchalance for the whole shtick of, stuffy summoner hoo-ha. And that scene ended. It began with a cup of tea and ended with a slice of moonberry pie.
And then she saved your life.
Well, Well, okay, yeah, that you saved my life. Blah, 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 blah.
Okay. Just to recap, Tag exploded out of that spaceship like we discussed earlier without a parachute. Luckily for him, Bryn found
Things are
him in the
happening
air.
very quickly. And I do think that it's pretty dope that, oftentimes we see the sidekick figure to someone of such high status, like, an empress, the summoner, as having a kind of protectoral role. But already in episode 1, we've seen the summoner save his butt.
Mhm.
Who knows what the future of this relationship will entail? But I suspect hijinks.
All right. And Professor.
Well, actually, that was going to be mine because I thought that scene was delightful, and I recommend you all going back and watching it. It's only about 5-10 minutes long or something like that. That exchange between Tag and the Summoner was wonderful. There's the whole little ceremony thing, and it's just it was wonderful to watch unravel this relationship, but also just like the way it was doing it. And I happen to really enjoy the two people who were playing these roles, and I thought that was very, very cute. So I think I'll move on to something else, since that was already explained so eloquently by Mr. Marks. How about big plot point of when we're coming off of our other ship to go on to this other planet, whose name escapes me, unfortunately.
The Preserve.
The Preserve. Into this, jungle world. And we're just kind of like, getting ready to go to the one habitable area that we can see at least. And like this large sort of like, flash happens. And I believe it starts out as almost a beam straight up and then kind of like goes out from there and affects us in our little dropship that we were in. And at that moment, we all, as characters, needed to, assess the situation and quickly react to it. I thought that was some fun things. We all got to see like what we would do in that sort of scenario.
And you save robots.
And I save robots, apparently. Technically, everybody else was saved. Everybody had already gone. So I thought the robot needed a little bit of saving too. He seemed sentient-ish.
Yeah. Sentient-ish.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna, unless you guys have any more thoughts bubbling up about what happened last week, I'm gonna transition us into this week.
No, I don't believe so. So
right.
Just to be clear, this is what happened before we all met each other. And what happened last week.
Rex, we're going to start with you. A lot of the planets in this system, besides the Preserve, have yet to be named. We're thinking about having them be named by chat in chat contests as rewards. So we will just be referring to the planets as their elements.
So come up with a really cool name for my planet, yo.
Yeah. Rex, you're from the Lightning Planet.
That's correct.
Do you want to tell me a bit about what the aesthetic of that world is like? How you want to imagine it, or want us to imagine it?
What I see is a kind of almost desolate seaside town, if you will, but extremely high tech. We're a little bit of the Wild West. There's a lot of windswept grasses. There's not much that grows in this part of the world, except for very tall seagrass. And I would say our days are dominated by the sky, because there are no mountains nearby, there are no tall trees. There is just sky and water and these tall seagrasses that when they move, they look like the ocean. We are our town's purpose is to better harness lightning in service of the company. And so the company has opened. Our town exists because of the company. There's the company's location itself, and then just like all these little expanding hubs outside of the company's location. Is that a stretching or is that a question?
Me?
Connor?
Oh, I think it was a stretch.
Just a stretch.
Okay.
All right. So I want us to see this world while we're in it. So I want to put a scene on this planet. Let's pick a time in your history. I think you would be about 12. It's a big day. There's a changing of the seasons in the lightning planet. When the storm season starts. And once the storm season starts, we're looking at several months of nonstop wind, thunder, lightning.
It's my favorite time.
Yeah, it makes you feel charged up constantly. It's this palpable energy that just charges the entire surface of the planet, and the planet is able to harness this energy to fuel a very large tech industry in which a lot of the mechanical endeavors of the entire solar system are kind of undertaken, and these big hubs around these factories are where the workers of these factories live. But the day that marks on the calendar when the season changes into the storm season is celebrated by all the locals, and it's a holiday that doesn't have too much fanfare outside of the hubs themselves. It's not recognized by the company, and they usually have to skew the date so it lands on a weekend and everybody has the day off. But at this festival, everyone is allowed to make their own. Why don't you tell us about this? There's going to be a sport. We're going to see an event. Trin and I talked for just a second before we started about what this event might look like. Will you tell us about what this event is? This
Sure.
race?
Well, the sense of excitement that the entire town feels, it's like you said, it is like electricity. You can feel it in the air of people sensing that the season is coming. And those of us who are like me are so excited because we know, like, everything is fueled by this season. It is our season of work, but it is also our season of discovery when these storms come. And I love these storms. And one of the ways in which this change in seasons is celebrated is we have big races where, for different age groups, you build different crafts to harness the power of lightning, and then have a race, over a distance to see who can get there fastest with these crafts. And if I were to describe it in Earth terms, it looks a little like somebody who's windsurfing, but we don't do it on the water. We do it on this big, tall seagrass. And I have everyone spends all year working on their crafts because we work so much in this town. Even the kids feel the pressure that their parents experience, that there are not a lot of outlets for creative energies here. Everything must be useful and productive in some sort of way. And so this is one of the few avenues in which one can be creative. And I have built myself, it kind of looks like if you could make a DJ's table also be a surfboard.
Mm-hmm. So where you're putting your feet can actually spin and rotate and control how it functions? Okay. Does it have a sail or a lightning rod?
Huge sail with a huge lightning rod.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are you strapped into this thing, or are you just holding on?
Just your feet. So like snowboarding.
All right.
So you can rotate, but your feet are strapped in. And then you've got like little arm straps to kind of control what do you do with the sails.
Okay. Excellent. Before we get to the race, I just want to touch on one thing. You said that there's a pressure felt by everybody in your colony, including the children, that everything that is created must be useful. Is that pressure put on your colony by the company or by the necessity of surviving in this place?
That is an excellent question. I think we feel this pressure because it is both a challenging place to live and, truth be told, most people wouldn't settle there if it weren't for the company.
Mhm.
So there may be a few who would be very attracted to the energy of such a place and want to live in such a dangerous, scary place. But most of us are here because of the company, and the company controls our lives to a great extent. You know, for instance, I'm the only child of my parents because you have to get approval from the company in order to reproduce. So they have to approve that time off. They have to approve every aspect of that. And so there is an enormous amount of pressure that once you've made the investment in children, that they be useful.
Okay.
And they improve society in some way.
Okay. That sounds tough.
It's a tough place.
Okay. And so for this contest, this race of these hovering electric lightning powered surfboards, what do you win? What does the winner win?
I think bragging rights. I think it's just universally acknowledged that you are, that you are the coolest, baddest, most innovative motherfucker around.
Okay.
And that's one of the highest currencies, is the respect of the people you live with.
And would this respect and bragging rights translate to not only the way that your parents viewed the activity, but the way that anybody else's parents viewed the parents of the winner? Are the parents of the winner equally as boastful?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it would be an enormous source of pride for someone's parents, were their child to win this race, or they themselves to win the race, because there's different age categories.
Sure.
It goes by ages.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody's gathered around the lip of what was once a large crater. It has since been filled in by some of the previous companies' construction on the planet, and over the years, the grass has returned. There's not much land on this planet that is not covered in this long grass. The soil doesn't support much else. It's difficult to farm, and so the resources that you make on this planet are then traded to other planets, like the preserve, for food, sustenance, or fuel. And so there's this light indention that's a couple miles wide that's just full of this grass, and a crowd has gathered. It's just your colony. You know that on the other hubs there are other races, but each, this is not a large planet scale celebration. This is just you, your friends, your family, your neighbors. It's a very intimate contest, and therefore the stakes are very high. It's your heat, the young adults. There are only 3 of you competing this year. There was a 4th, but they weren't able to finish their... What do you call these crafts?
I'd love to get some suggestions from the chat if anyone's interested in chiming in on that.
Okay. Mark, if you want to give us if we get one, drop it in for us, but we'll just call them these crafts for now. You and 2 others hover down into the crater. There is an older woman with a very old knotted walking stick in which a handkerchief has been tied, and she raises it into the air, and the crowd goes silent. She then waves the flag, and the race begins. Why don't you roll Act Under Pressure, Rex?
All right. what is my cool again?
What is your cool?
It is 1. I have rolled a 10.
Okay. So you get what you want. I imagine you want a good start.
You do.
All right. You blow out of the gate, and you take the lead pretty early on. The thing about these races is they are a little Wild Westy, kind of like the planet that you're on. And
There aren't
so
a lot of rules.
there aren't a lot of rules. On your person, do you have a weapon of any kind, anything to defend yourself or aid you in steering the craft that might double as something else besides the arm straps that you mentioned?
Definitely some long, flexible rods that, could be used to shift some things around, but also, to just poke somebody else if need be.
Sure. As you're flying over the long grass, the other 2 contestants of this contest, we're looking at your direct neighbor, a young boy named Oli, and someone who you've only seen in passing. It's going to be a girl who's slightly older than you, probably by a year or 2, and her name is Ev. Oli cruises up and angles his craft towards you and starts barreling down on you. And you can tell that he's going to be doing a bit of a brush by maneuver in which he's probably going to tap you. What do you do?
I quickly pull one of my wings off to the side so that I'm maneuvering out of his way, but also hopefully then kind of blowing some air back towards him to knock him off his intended course.
Okay. Do you just want to disrupt his path, or do you want to deal a little damage to his craft?
I want to deal a little damage to his craft, if
All
I
right.
can.
Yeah. Roll kick some ass. Let's see if you can.
And that's with my plus tough, yeah?
Plus tough.
All right, 9.
Okay. So, you get him. And what ends up happening is his
Suck it,
sail...
Ollie!
He says, F you, Rex! You twist your sail, wind billows off of it, and the cross brace that you've actually used to mount it pierces his sail. But it locks his craft to yours.
Oh, god damn.
Which starts to slow you down. The 2 of you are scuffling here. You catch an elbow, he catches an elbow, and you see Ev, the older girl, blow past the both of you. What do you do?
Ollie, you're gonna ruin this for all of us. And I just give him a really, really hard, sharp elbow just to try and knock him off completely.
All right. Roll kick some ass one more time.
Oh no, they both fell off. Oh no, it's a really good roll, but I have to re-roll, right? That's the rule.
I think so.
Damn.
You should have just lied.
I should have just lied. 11.
All right, perfect. Yeah, you knock him right off of his craft. It dips down into the long grass, and you can see that the sail, the mast breaks. And you speed forward, and you are catching up on Ev. But you can see also that the clouds have rolled in, and the storm is starting a bit earlier than everybody had anticipated. It usually hits in the evening, and then once it hits, it stays. It lights up the whole night. There's going to be a feast afterwards that takes place. No torches allowed. It's just lit by the lightning, and it's so prevalent that it ends up kind of being like a strobe. But the storm is rolling in a bit early, and you know that when the pressure builds on these storms in particular, especially out in the long grassed fields, the buildup of the elemental lightning energy starts to collect on the planet's surface, almost as if it's being pulled out of the planet itself to meet the lightning that crashes down in the sky and create this really strange symbiotic electrical storm. Read a bad situation. Plus sharp.
Eight.
Okay, you're going to be able to ask me one question. What you can tell is that coming up, you are probably going to have to deal with something called ball lightning, which is an accumulation of elemental lightning on the ground that rolls around and is very volatile.
I'm just looking at the questions.
Sure.
What's my best way out?
You know that you won't have time to get into a scuffle with Ev in the same way that you and Oli just messed around. If you want to make it through this ball lightning field, which is now turning into kind of a minefield, you're going to want to just barrel down and go straight through. You're going to have to pass very close by Ev, but if you manage to do so without getting caught by her, you should be able to pull ahead, and there's a chance she won't be able to get out.
Great.
All right.
That's what I'm going to try to do.
Okay. You're just going to need to act under pressure.
Eight.
Okay. So, I'm going to give you a hard choice. You can get to the finish line by yourself, passing her by, but it's going to require you to bump her off of the board because there's not enough space in between two mines, potentially leaving her stranded in this field of electricity. Or you could settle on second place, get as close to her as you can, and follow her through the field. But you can't do both. So do you want to win sacrificing her safety, or do you want to lose making sure everybody gets out okay?
At 12 years old, I want to win.
All right. You blow by her, and the sail hits her sail, and it twists her board, and she flies off into the field. But you don't see what happens because you explode out of this electrical minefield and cross the finish line, and jump off your craft, expecting to see everybody cheering for you. But when you turn around to get your congratulations, you are met with a rather these crafts are called shimmer skimmers, by the
Great.
way. When
Love
you
it.
jump off your shimmer skimmer, you see that the crowd is actually running to the edge of the lightning field, and they look very concerned. What do you do?
I look around for a second, shocked that no one is congratulating me. Every other race I've ever seen, everyone just swarms the winner and lifts them onto their shoulders, and it's a huge celebration. But then I notice that they're all running towards something, and so I join them.
Okay, you join the crowd and you make it to the edge of this, what was just the course that you were racing on your shimmer skimmer. And you can see that two women have gone into the electrical field and come back out. They're wearing what looks like thermal blankets, but you know that they just don't conduct electricity and they're used in emergencies. They have them wrapped over themselves and they are carrying Ev between them. She is still breathing, but she looks unconscious and she's covered in electrical burns, and they have wrapped a protective blanket around her as well, and they are carrying her out. You can see your parents in the crowd. They look like they are looking for you. Nobody else seems to be paying attention to you. Everybody else seems to be trying to get everyone to leave the field now because the lightning field is expanding, and it won't be long before this entire area is being... It's a very dangerous place to be. What do you do?
I think I am horrified by what has just happened. I wanted to win, but I didn't actually want her to get hurt. And no one seems to be... I mean, I can see my parents looking for me, but I'm too ashamed to go to them. And so I take off running. I don't even really have a destination in mind. I just need to get out of there.
Okay. You turn and run away from the crowd. And we're going to end that scene there. And we're going to jump to Tag. Tag, you're slightly different from the rest of this party of adventurers simply because they all know exactly where they came from, and they know which planet to call home. But you don't. You're on mute.
Classic.
Respectfully.
What's up?
Do you want to take us through the night that you arrived at what became your home for much of your youth?
Sure. So, we have this society called the Order Parallel. It's a group, you can think of them almost as if a very monkish group, singularly devoted to training parallels, getting them ready to accompany and be bonded to summoners. This is a tradition, a practice that has been going on as long as there have been summoners, as far as we know. And it takes place, we know that this is a universe composed of these 6 different planets, each devoted to a single type of elemental magic, the center of which is the continuum, this kind of mystical celestial body. There is a moon orbiting very, very, very tightly around the continuum. This moon is called Silva Celesso, or Silvalesso for short. You know, if you're local, if you're on planet, you can just say Silvalesso, but properly Silva Celesso. This is a planet that has largely been outside of the industrialization that the other planets have gone through. So the company really has touched everywhere. There's a sort of globalized web of commerce, production, trade, technology that this moon has very much been outside of. When I think about it, I think I picture kind of I say this from a pretty uneducated standpoint because I've never really visited rural Britain in the 30s and 40s, but that's the kind of aesthetic that comes to my mind. Very quaint, grassy hillsides, kind of this cottage look, often raining. Really like kind of pleasant, old-fashioned. It's a place where, for whatever reason, artisanal work has thrived, where people on this moon are still making things with their hands. They're still growing food themselves in a little local economy to that planet. And I suspect that they are tied to the outside planets in some way that I haven't thought of. Maybe we can discover that as we keep interacting with Silva Celesso. But main part of this is the Order Parallel. And you've got the trainees, the parallels, and then you have what is called the Old Guard, which is all the parallels that have performed their duties, but I guess you could consider it ultimately have failed. They are parallels who no longer have bonds. They no longer have summoners because their summoner has died or somehow relinquished their duties. So these parallels no longer have a bond. They no longer have a purpose. They become the Old Guard. They train the new parallels. I think, and we're all kind of creating this as the words are coming out of my mouth, but I think I like the idea that it's not exactly what's the Jon Snow is part of the Knights of the Watch. What are they called?
The Night's Watch.
The Night's Watch. Thank you, Brian. Yeah. So I think we have, in that case, it's all of the members are outcast in some way. I don't think that that's what's up. Um, but I also don't think that it's this great honor to be a parallel either. I think there is somewhat of an informal. I'm going to use a term that I mean colloquially more than historically. There's kind of an informal caste system about these planets. There's different social strata, and for families that don't have a lot of means, for families that aren't going to otherwise be set up for great success in the continuum, I think that they can kind of not offer their children in a chattel sense, but offer their children in a, I guess, an honor within the like small honor category. And I think that it's kind of it's a reciprocal process. So like when you are a medical student and apply for a residency at a hospital, you as the student put out your list of top choices of hospitals, and so do the hospitals put out their list of top choices for students. And if there's a match, great. So I think that there is a process by which the old guard seeks out compatibility, because really what you're looking for is creating a tool. When you're a parallel through that training process, you, as part of this new life, it's beyond a profession even. It's this destiny, this purpose is to serve your summoner, to serve something else. So I think it can't just be anybody looking for a summer gig because the pool closed and they don't need any more lifeguards. So I think that there's a bond. So if you have a fire summoner, you have a fire parallel, a squire or a page who shares that same magical affinity. If you have a summoner in the world of Bloom, so will their parallel possess a kind of synchronous magic. I've been talking for so long. What question did you ask me?
I don't remember, but I think you're answering it.
Okay, cool. So here's my idea. I think I kind of think that Tag doesn't quite fit into that. I don't think Tag was selected by the Order. I think that what happened is Tag was essentially dropped in a basket at the front door of this monastery, and we can play that out and see what that looked like. But I like the idea that he's not even in training to be a parallel. He kind of just works at I'm going to call it a monastery. He works at the society. He's helping serve food. He's helping iron the clothes. He's helping maintain the grounds for all these parallels that are his age, and his friends even. And he's very much, they're all living together. It's incredibly insular and close knit. But I don't think he started out as an inductee. So how he became Bryn's parallel, we'll have to find out.
Mm-hmm. I think we're going to get into your training in your next scene. So I want to just have a moment in which you and I will assume the roles of the two old guard who find this baby in a basket on the doorstep.
Great.
And what might be going through our minds when that happens.
Right.
Tell me what it's like for the old guard on a night watch. What do the duties entail? How long are the shifts? What does it feel like?
It's very quiet. It's not a cushy job by any means. No one wants to be part of the old guard, because to be part of the old guard means that you've failed in the purpose that you were designed for and trained for. So there is a sense of resignation, and when we're patrolling the grounds, when we're overseeing the dormitories. It's all it's I think that the shame at that failure has really plunged us further into that ascetic, monastic, single purpose lifestyle to make sure that others don't fail in the way that we have.
Okay, it's heavy. Okay, you are.
But also,
and
there's all the cereal that you could want, so it's always something to be excited about. So
And
it's not-
bingo on Thursdays.
Yeah, what on Thursdays?
Bingo.
Bingo on Thursdays, yes.
Okay, so there is a tower that is near the front entrance to the monastery. It is used primarily for a base of operations for the guard that are on patrol for the evening. There's a couple bunks upstairs. People sleep in shifts. You're not expected to work straight through the night. And not everybody works every day of the week. So this would just be the night that you would be waking up from your first sleep shift, and you're about to go on patrol. You hear the door downstairs creak, and somebody comes inside. When you come downstairs, there is another guard, and they have a basket in their hand.
But Taman, I don't think that you're on duty till later. My shift is patrolling out front. Am I wrong?
No, I'm sorry, you're right. Ego, I had to come inside early. I apologize. I've asked Stefano to watch in my stead, but I found something.
Okay.
I found, well, perhaps you should just look. And please.
And he lifts the blanket of the basket, and we see a baby, maybe at most 1 month old, and it's lying on its side in the basket, and you can see running down its body from right behind its ear, down the neck, down his side, around and down his leg. There's just a single scar, ending not at his heel, but even curving around onto the bottom of his foot and ending at a perfect dot on his heel. And it doesn't look like the scar that you and I would get when we cut something and it's jagged and imperfect. It's a perfect line down the left side of this child. And it's raining, and you and I are both, we pull up our hoods and we lean our heads closer in, and it's the rain is hitting the ground next to us and popping up droplets, and they're jumping higher and higher as the rain falls harder and harder. And there's something that doesn't make any sense. The baby just coughs a little bit, and I don't know if it's the how late it is or the glass of wine I had before coming down, but it looks just ever so faintly as if a little purple mist emanates out as the baby coughs.
Did you see that?
Holy shit!
That's not the first time it's happened either.
The cough.
Yeah, it happened once when it farted too.
Oh my god. What? I'm not a babysitter. What are we supposed to do with a child?
I don't know. I looked around. Somebody left this on the doorstep. I ran into the street.
Well, it's not Ding Dong Ditch. If you leave a baby on a doorstep, you don't hide behind a tree nearby and giggle.
True?
I guess. I don't know. I'm conjecturing. I've never had a baby left on a doorstep before.
Nor have I left a baby left on a doorstep. Look, Ego, I don't know what to do. I thought maybe if I could find who left the baby, I could just talk to them and ask them to take it back. We could pretend that this never happened, but...
Just take it back? You think if it was that easy to have them take it back, they wouldn't have kept the baby in the first place?
Think about the last time you were in a moment of crisis, okay?
Okay.
If you had someone there to just listen or perhaps give you advice, could that have altered the trajectory that you took afterwards? I'm not saying I would have been able to solve whatever problem it was, but perhaps I could have offered aid.
Sure. Fine. I'm not here to debate the semantics of moral guidance in someone's life. I'm here to call dramatic attention to the fact that we are now in possession of a child. I can't believe you brought this through the doors. This becomes our responsibility, Taman.
It became my responsibility the moment I saw it. I can't walk away from something
your
like that.
Soft heart. And at that moment, there's a little giggle, and we both look down, and the baby has just kind of stretched out and twisted his body a little bit, and as it reaches its limbs upward, small arcs of electricity just dance between his fingers.
You see what I'm talking about?
Is that Brian as our baby sound effects in the background? It's excellent.
So, think about this with me here, okay? It's the middle of the night. We're in the middle of my watch. No one else is awake. No one at the town is awake.
Perfect. Put it back outside the door. No one will know.
It's raining.
Okay.
We'll have to cover it in something.
So put a blanket over it. It'll be a little bit damp. It'll dry out. It's a human being.
Okay, look, here's what I think. You're right. We sneak into the monastery, go into the linen closet, and get something waterproof. Then we sneak back out and put the baby on the doorstep, and hopefully Stefano will come across it.
Fine. But let it just be known, I think the doorstep is just going to perpetuate the exact problem that got us here in the first place. Stefano will find it, he'll bring it in, he'll talk to you, you'll talk to me, and then the three of us will be holding a baby again 2 hours later and having wasted a perfectly good piece of waterproof linen.
So you recommend we...
Also, let's just take a moment to really pat ourselves on the back for having waterproof linen available at the monastery.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a feat.
So, let me just get this straight.
Yes.
Where do you want to put the baby?
I say we take at least... Look, there are populated areas that someone will find the baby. Someone who has the means and the interest to raise a child. We're a barracks. We're a training ground. The children that come here, they're selected. They're warriors. They're brilliant sorcerers. They have a duty. They have a connection to the order. This child would have no place here.
You're right. Let's just go get that waterproof linen.
Right.
And then we'll figure out where to put the baby after that.
Fine. So,
we're going to sneak in to the monastery. Why don't you first just start by rolling Act Under Pressure?
let's assume my cool is 0. How about?
Okay.
Unless I am tag the baby rolling right now.
Nah.
Am I rolling as the baby?
Should you be?
Nah.
I don't know that babies can act under pressure.
This baby, though. All right,
I
you
would
have a
argue
cool...
that always babies act under pressure.
True. All right, you're gonna just roll
We're all imagining this baby wearing a hat, shades, and playing a baby little saxophone here. Yes. Hey, we're gonna clear the air and move on from there.
Okay. So just
Okay.
roll plus 0. You're
Plus
just rolling a straight roll.
Great. That's a mighty 3.
Why don't you? I think we get caught. I'd like you to tell us how, and I think that Brian is going to step in to catch us. But why don't you set up the scene in which we get caught breaking into the monastery with a baby to get a waterproof linen?
Great. I think what happens is that we both come in. We bring the baby and we set it down, and we're just going through all these old wooden shelves, and they've got these ladders that you can climb up, get to the even higher shelves. We have thousands of different pieces of linen, some waterproof, some festive, some designed for specific holidays, some for different uniforms. There's just categories and categories of different linens. But really, to the eye, if you look back, they all kind of look like the same sort of beigey gray linen. If you Google beigey gray, you will find It's not much of a blend there. But we can't find the waterproof linen anywhere. And so we're just furious. And then we hear this yee-haw from outside, and we both kind of Brady Bunch style peek our heads around the doorway, and we see in the courtyard, in the rain, Stefano is holding the waterproof linen like a cape, just running around going, "Can't get me, rain! Woohoo!" And so, so we start calling out, "Stefano! Stefano!"
Enter Stefano.
Yeah. Woohoo! Is that me? Sorry.
Yes, that's you.
All right. So I'm in a courtyard with a waterproof baby blanket, trying to keep the rain off myself.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Can we get Brian on screen here with us? Stefano, come here. Come here.
What? Me? Yeah. Yeah.
No, the other Stefano. Yes, you.
Yeah. All right. Why? What's up? What's going on?
What? And I point wildly at holding up this basket, and I just baby, as if that should.
Where did you get a baby?
Is happening, baby.
I see that. Where did you get a baby?
We didn't
found
it. Taman found it.
Oh, okay. What do you want me to do with it?
We need to borrow your waterproof linen because Ego wants to go and leave the baby in the wilderness and cover it with a sheet.
I don't want to go leave a baby in the wilderness and cover it with a sheet. You make me sound like a monster. I just don't want to be tasked with raising a baby. I'm going to place it in the wilderness where it can be found by a loving set of parents who will cherish every moment raising it.
Look, all I know is about, what we've been doing in this monastery and everything. That's mostly what, encompasses my day. But isn't there I don't know, things in place, people we could talk to, be like, hey, we found this baby. I don't know what to do with it. Do you? Isn't there things in place? We're a structured society. Come on.
At that moment, another crackle of electricity goes over the baby's fingers. It looks at it, blows on them, and a swirl of kind of a mix of elemental energy just spins off and putters out. It's small, it's like a little thimble size, but it...
Elemental baby?
Wow. The baby sees it, and the baby's giggling as it goes away, and we all just crowd in over it. Now the camera looking up sees 3 heads peering over, rain coming down around, and as the baby's smiling eyes come back to resting, we can kind of see in its irises the sort of the silhouette of flame slowly fading out.
Look, you guys can take this from me or something. This whole waterproof blanket, that's fine. But I don't know what to do about this baby, man.
And when he says that, there's just a little beep, beep, and we look around a bit, and no one quite knows the delicate way to do this, so we just sort of very gently position the baby, and we see that there's a little scroll that we very archaic looking, and it is out of place because I think while this world, Silva Celesto, is very rustic in many ways, modern technology does exist. Parchment like this hasn't been used in years and years and years and years, and so there's something very strange on it. And Ego unrolls it, and there's nothing written on it, but then letters appear in sentences, not as if they're being scrawled on it, but typed. And they appear as if red, orange, burning embers in the parchment. And it says, Uh, the world is ripe for the curing. Old guard, take this baby.
The camera pans up to 3 stunned faces, and Tamon says, "We better take this baby to the masters."
Uh,
And that's
The letters fade from the scroll.
blackout. All right. We're going to jump to the professor.
the professor.
Unlike these other two, we're not going to deep dive into your youth. I think that we're going to start where your real calling began. You are an Arcano engineer. That is
That's
a
right.
very lofty title, a very difficult field to get into, very dangerous. It is the field of imbuing. It is about the synergy between magic and technology, and so there are many subfields within, but basically it is the interaction between those two prime systems. It is a new field. I'd like to ask you just a few questions about. Let's talk to the professor right out of grad school. You know, when the world is fresh and you haven't had much practical experience and you haven't had your first job yet, why did you get into this field?
It was something that just kind of whenever it was what ended up being at the pinnacle of a mountain of just learning that has been happening since before the professor can remember. He he actually had an injury on his left leg early on that never really fully healed, and so he was never really one to play with the other kids on the Void Planet, which was kind of a big thing. Like the Void Planet is a lot more densely populated, at least I'm under that impression.
Yeah.
Than some of the other planets, and so like social interactions are I don't know about necessarily bigger, but it's certainly a lot more dense in population. So friends are many. You usually a kid has lots of friends growing up. Not so much necessarily for the professor. Just he was very much an indoor kid. Kind of dealt with some asthma, had the bum leg, and also he had some parents that are really like forcing excellence from him from a very early age.
Okay.
What was your question again? I'm sorry.
Dennis, it was how you got into the
Exactly.
field. What? How was school? How did you do in school? How did you like it?
Oh, it was fantastic. There was a lot of shyness and a lot of like weird kind of like interactions with other people when he was in classes with other people. He missed a lot of the social cues that are other people kind of like absorb just by being around other people. So a lot of that stuff kind of goes over his head, so sometimes he says some weird things. But yeah, like he's had a doctorate in arcana engineering, but he also has masters in like geospatial sciences and elemental aerodynamics. And like I said, it's just kind of like one school of learning just opened up another school of learning, and in order to really decipher all that he needed to know, he really needed to learn about all these kinds of different schools of thought, and that kind of informed one another and helped propel him to his position that he has now.
Okay. It doesn't sound like you were a bad kid, so this question is tailored to a specific line of inquiry.
Okay.
Did you ever get into any trouble? Like if you weren't causing a ruckus, but did you ever experiment in a way or try something dangerous in your studies that?
Lots of failed experiments, lots of like blow ups and things from tinkering from things, and anything that failed or missed the mark of success or excellence was sort of followed by a really long lectures from his father, who is the dean in the university on the planet, and has been for several years. And so, yeah, like you would get in some problems like trying to you know put together some knickknacks and things. Some things would catch fire. Um, there was a dog that never had hair after a certain time. Uh, yeah, little things like that.
Okay. And yeah, okay. So leaving school, I feel like there's one other thing I was going to ask you, but if I forget it, we're just going to skip it. Yeah,
Okay.
whatever. Um, leaving school. Oh yeah, your leg injury.
Yeah.
How were you? Was it something you were born with, or was it something that happened to you, or something that you inflicted through your experimentation accidentally?
Um, Gosh, let's see. Leg injury. Let's go with how about it was actually on the very few times in his childhood that he actually did hang out with the other kids.
Mm,
And he was introduced to some people through, his distant cousin, and they like to kind of free run through the buildings and stuff, and around the Void Planet, which all the buildings are very close together. Think of like Coruscant from Star Wars or something like that. It's just a planet that's densely metropolitan, almost the entire thing.
yeah, city
And
planet.
City Planet, yeah. And yeah, I would imagine he tried to like prove himself in front of these other cats, and try to do what they were doing, but like he wasn't necessarily as physically able as some of these other people. So like when they jumped over a surface onto another surface and rolled and continued going, he tried to do the same thing and broke his knee.
Wow. Okay. In the episode 1, you discussed having a contraption built on your leg that you had made to help with that.
Mhm.
When would that have come around? Is that something you did as a young man, or something that is an evolving project through the course of your life?
More as a young man, it's relatively pretty simple at this point. Um, I mean, doesn't have a whole lot of bells and whistles on it, so it's not. I mean, like he tinkers with it and will try to make it more efficient, make it maybe to go past his normal capabilities. But in the early stages of life, no, it was pretty much just a brace that he always kept on, his leg. He would tinker with it to see if he could improve the design, but
Okay.
not much.
So coming out of school, you would have had excellent grades. There are, especially on the city planet, thousands, hundreds of thousands of companies. It's a large planet. The entire thing's a city. But the company is the standard of scientific experimentation, exploration. They are setting the bar for everything in every field consistently. They are the largest, they have the most resources and the sharpest minds working for them. Not only are they big and powerful and wealthy, but they also have access to each of the other planets, and they have the ability to harness the elements in a way that no other company can. And so I believe that you would see them as a way to I mean, coming out of school, they would be your first choice because they would offer you kind of a limitless resources to pursue the various fields that you're in. And they are also actively pursuing those fields in a way that is making an impact on society on a rather large scale. So the scene that I want to do is your first job interview with the company. Tell me what it would be like going into this job interview. How do you feel to sit across from the desk with a real live human being?
Oh man. I would imagine that I have that mentor, right? Do I have that mentor at this time, you think, or is that some mentor that I got later on in life?
I feel like you would have met him through your work in the company.
Okay. In that case, I would be really nervous through several different kind of like talks and some rehearsals basically with
Mhm.
with my father, and then he got fed up, and so then I started doing it with my mother because she's a little bit more understanding. Just kind of like over the vid screen kind of thing, trying to prepare. And of course, when I actually go through the door, all of that is out the window, and I forgot everything that I had prepared myself for, because there's actual, human faces and stuff. And most of the time, I'm used to hanging out with robots.
Mhm. I think you walk in. It's a very large tower where the company has their headquarters on the Void Planet, and it's an interesting building because there is actually a rocket launch built into it. It occupies a large campus. So the main tower is where you would be going, but there would be several places where they can go into orbit just from their own backyard, essentially. But we're talking about a Disneyland-sized theme park of science. You walk in the door, have trouble navigating the place. You don't arrive late. Unfortunately, you don't arrive with enough time to do what you'd planned, which was to step into the restroom, look in the mirror, splash a little water on your face, and center yourself. You walk into the lobby of the office of the hiring personnel and are ushered immediately into the room that's been reserved to interview you.
Okay.
When you come in, you're on a middling floor, but still about 60 to 70 stories high. And you have a view of their campus, and it is vast. And you can see in the distance, they're actually launching a satellite at that moment, and a rocket is going into the sky.
Oh man.
The
Yeah.
person sitting across the desk from you is a woman, probably, you're in your late 20s. She's probably in her early 30s. She's a bit severe looking and focused on some paperwork that is on her desk. When you enter, she does not look up.
Hi. My name is Dr. Baxter Brodigan. Do you happen? Am I on a list, or am I in the right place? It's a very large building.
Oh, yes. Sit down.
Yeah. Okay. I point over to the rocket ship that it's escaping. Where is that going?
That's actually going to our moon base.
Oh,
It's a
wow.
supply run. There's a
Okay.
satellite on board that they will detach in orbit, and then they will continue on to the moon base to deliver supplies. We try not to waste a trip.
Have you ever been off world?
I have.
Oh man, what's it like? Where'd you go? I've never been off world. I've only been here.
I actually summer on the preserve.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's wonderful. A beautiful planet.
I've heard that it's very humid there. Is that correct?
It is indeed, yes, but one needs not get out of their bathing suit very often.
Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to bug you. I'm just gonna sit down and I'm just gonna focus. It's my first job interview.
No problem. She's a little amused. She does not seem put off by your nervous energy. You get the impression that perhaps you're not the first nervous engineer who she has interviewed.
Mhm.
She says, Dr. Brodigan, uh,
Yes.
we have been looking over your resume, and while it lacks practical experience because of your time in school, we're very impressed with the work you did at the university.
Yes. Yes. I hope so. I developed kind of a unique um, process, if you will.
The process that you're alluding to, rather humbly, is the reason we've brought you in for an interview. This process usually takes much longer, but we're very curious as to your findings. Would you like to tell me about the process that you developed towards the end of your time at the university?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm so sorry. I apologize. I thought we were going to be going into a different room. I thought this was just the waiting room. I didn't know that the job interview had already started yet. I apologize. Okay. Can you ask your question again now? I'm sorry.
Will you please tell me about the process that you were developing towards the end of your time at the university?
Yes, yes. I have actually developed this process called, well, for lack of a better term, distilling magic. What I do is I can actually like isolate the magic in an item or an artifact or a machine or a bit of gear or any kind of magical property it actually has, and
A
I can
creature?
a creature could possibly work. I haven't tested about that, but I'm sure actually the process would stand up to a creature as well. But I'm able to extract the magic, the elemental magic from that object, and crystallize it in something I like to call an Erix.
Hmm.
And I can use that Erix and socket it to other kinds of items, or gear, or mechs, or perhaps even robots, or what have you, and
Humans?
have. It's a very interesting thought process. I never actually thought about humans, but I suppose with some fiddling around, I could probably do something with that. Yeah.
She smiles, nods, makes a note.
I mean, these abilities that you would grant within these other new weapons that you socket the Erics, and would have could have a defensive capability, or an offensive capability, or have a different kind of like effect entirely.
And this process, you've tested it.
Oh yeah.
You've created an Eric's
Yes, I have.
successfully.
Yes. Would you like to see one?
You have one with you?
I actually do. Yeah. This is. I mean, obviously we're on the Void planet, and so a lot of our items around here are powered by Void, including some robots. And I actually was able to extract this about 3.5 months ago, and it's sort of my first go at this. I've done it a few more times since then, but those are under lock and key and in my quarters. But this is a Void Eric's.
Excellent. You can tell she wants to reach out and ask to touch it, but she refrains.
Okay.
She says, Dr. Brodigan, as you are no doubt aware, the void field around this planet makes it very difficult to access the magic so many of the other planets in this system have at their fingertips.
Correct.
We here at the company find this process that you're describing of distilling magic into an Eric's to be very exciting in the terms of harnessing an energy source that has so far been unavailable to us and bringing it to the surface of this planet. You've tested the items and are able to imbue technology here on the planet with this, and it works?
Yes, ma'am.
You have to understand that no decisions will be made here in this room, but we are very excited to talk to you about this, and I would perhaps like to schedule a demonstration. I just
nothing
have
would
a
please
few
me
more
more.
questions. That's great. I just have a few questions for you.
Yeah.
You said that you might be able to... I'm going to pose a hypothetical scenario to you, and I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
If there were a creature imbued with an elemental magic, one that is very powerful, you think you would be able to distill the magic from that creature with this process?
Well, it's not an instantaneous process. It does take a while, but and again, I haven't actually tested this on creatures, but hypothetically speaking, it would be a very similar process for living beings or automatons or whatnot. So I think I would be able to duplicate this, very easily, as long as I was able to get to the creature, and it wouldn't be moving around or be hostile or whatnot if it was.
Sure, of course. What do you think would happen to the creature?
That actually is one of the things that really excites me about this proposition, is because I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what would happen when you take an elemental force out of a creature like that. Would it just fall down dead? Would it cease to move? Would it be the same except it didn't have its elemental force? I don't really know exactly. I'm very interested in finding out, however.
Wonderful. What do you know about the summoner families who rule the planet?
That follows a school of logic that I'm not as much familiar with, which, more the divine celestial kind of like aspect of our culture, but powerful, kind of aristocratic, kind of movers and shakers of different planets.
In
Not exactly.
tune with elemental magic.
Yes.
Do you think the process would work on a summoner?
I don't know why we. I'm not sure if I understand your question. Why would we want to remove the ability from summoners?
I'm merely curious if you think it would be possible.
Well, I'd like to say it would need lots of testing with other kind of like lower creatures and whatnot. And I would have to perfect the process with something living. But I suppose hypothetically it stands for a reason that it's possible.
Excellent. I would love to set up a time for you to demonstrate this process with my superiors present. So why don't we call it a day? And Dr. Brodigan, you did very well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Miss.
We'll be in touch. That's the end of that scene.
Neat.
Chills.
I think there wasn't there like something that went on in Trat? There wasn't something in the tip jar? Isn't that what happened? I thought I heard that.
I heard the noise of what I thought was the tip jar, but I didn't hear the little British voice that I feel like we got last time.
That is true.
I don't
All right.
know any. I don't know.
I don't know.
Lisa, we need you to tell us.
Lisa!
Lisa!
Okay. Here is what I propose. We've been going for an hour and a half. I'd like to take a quick 2-minute break. And then I think we come back and we see one more scene from each of you, and perhaps we call it there. But there is a second beat to each of these that I would love to explain.
Did we have anything that chat needs to think of a name for?
We need planet. We need the lightning planet name.
Lightning planet.
Cool name.
As
It's
well
gotta
as
be really
the void
cool.
planet.
Now, is that a one that needs to be named when we reach a certain level on the tip jar, or is that just like needs to happen? It doesn't really matter. Let's happen right now.
We're going to find that out during this 2-minute break. And we're also going to find out what we potentially missed during this chat.
Very well.
All right.
Cool.
I think we're on break.
It's raining outside.
I don't see sunny or rainy. They're all just days to me.
Okay, but clearly it's raining.
Is it? I mean, yes, obviously it is, but just to play devil's advocate for a moment, is it really?
Yes, it is. Look outside.
So you want it to be sunny all the time? Is that what you want? You want constant sunshine. Have you ever heard of a drought?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that it's raining.
Look, don't be such a hater. All days matter.
Dude, just look outside.
You know, my cousin was caught in a snowstorm last year. Where was the outrage then?
I'm just pointing out.
It rains so much more in India. You have to deal with so much less weather in this part of the world. But I don't know why you're complaining. True, it was raining, but it's completely stopped now. Ancient history. Get over yourself. I studied meteorology in high school, and the term is actually precipitation. The climate changes are clearly part of a natural cycle that has nothing to do with us. So, rain should be underrepresented. Maybe rain just writes better science fiction. This kind of negativity just propagates the conservative agenda. People who wear raincoats anyway, right? F you. You ignorant Did you back and your or were you just that way? I hope you get rained on. That'll teach you a lesson. To push this dry-hating cumulonimbus bull.
I think we've had a little misunderstanding. Maybe we should go outside, take a walk. You can get some fresh air.
In the rain?
We get the final insert here and
All
then
right.
break for second move.
All right. Warm pocket cheese.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Okay.
Thank you, Jesse.
We're going to jump back into Rex's story. Where we left off, you had just seen a fellow racer get
Ev,
bumped.
she's the coolest racer in the whole town.
Yeah. Why don't you give us a little wrap up of your feelings and what happened, and then I'd love you to end by just telling us where you ended up when you ran away.
I'm in shock. The sky almost feels like it's pulsing, and I can't tell if that's because I'm 12 years old and everything feels like it's always on the edge of erupting, or because we are about to have the worst storm that our town has ever seen. And as I'm running, tears are streaming down my face because all I wanted to do was make my parents proud of me. All I wanted to do was win the race. Like, sure, I didn't want anything bad to happen to anybody else. Yes, I didn't want them to win, and sure, it was fine if Ole got a little hurt, but Ev is like the coolest person I've ever met. She's nice to everybody, and she might be really hurt because of me. How could I do that to her? And this grass that grows everywhere, it's extremely tough, and we all usually wear a lot of like really thick, bulky clothing if we're going to be out amongst it. But because I was racing and I didn't want anything to slow me down, I've worn just like the flimsiest clothing that I have, and so it's just getting shredded as I'm running. And I'm just trying to run away from all of these feelings. And I can hear someone back there. It feels like they're screaming. And I don't know why, but all I know is that I just want to get somewhere where I can like scream into the void. And I don't know what to do or where to go.
Okay. I think as you're running through this field, obviously in a direction away from the colony, you pass through a couple small hubs of civilization, but then you're back out into the wilderness and you end up at the lip of a cliff that dips down into one of the many seas that populate this planet. There are no oceans, there are just many inland seas. And you're just standing at the edge of this cliff. Communication over any kind of radio or vid screen on the planet during these storms is spotty at best, but you are carrying an emergency radio. Everybody does when they go out because of the storms and the way that they are so unpredictable and dangerous. And you hear it chirp in your pack. You are getting a call on the radio that you carry. And a voice comes out of it and says, Rex? Rex, are you there? And it's your dad.
Yeah, I'm here.
Where did you go? We were looking for you after the race.
I know, I had to get out of there. Is Ev okay?
I'm sure she's fine. Didn't you want to celebrate?
What? I thought everybody was mad at me.
Oh, mad. I hadn't even considered it.
Well, no one said anything. Everybody was just really worried about Ev, and I just saw everyone running towards her, and I just thought that something bad had happened.
Well, yeah, she's hurt, but I'm sure she'll be fine, and the rest of them will come around. But you won that race, fair and square. I thought you'd want to celebrate.
I don't know. I shoved her out of the way. She fell because of me.
She lost because she doesn't know how to steer a shimmer skimmer. It was a Bush League maneuver. Any pilot worth half their weight would be. I can't believe you even passed her, to be honest, but Ev isn't the pilot that we all thought she was, and it's obvious that you're the rightful winner. And yes, I'm sure that she's going to have some burns. Any fool who enters into the contest realizes that there's danger, and if they want to make a big deal out of it, that's their own problem. But you won. And we are so proud of you. Think about how they're going to look at me when I walk into work tomorrow.
Yeah, but Ev's really okay? She's fine?
I don't know that she's woken up yet, but she was breathing when I saw her.
I don't know, Dad. It just feels bad.
Let me tell you something, Rex. Life on this planet is not easy, and it's not getting any easier. Those who succeed recognize the consequences of their actions and make them anyway. If you didn't win that race, Ev would have. And then where would you be? You'd still have run away, except you'd been a loser. You'd be crying about lost.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
So why don't you come back here and sit down with your mother and I and have some dinner? I think she baked you a cake. But that's a surprise.
I think I'd like to walk around a little bit more, if that's okay.
Just don't take too long. Hold on just a second, honey. You hear a little bit of background. He leaves the channel open and he says, "What is it? Charlotte, what is it?" And there's some confusion, and it sounds like maybe the radio gets dropped, but the channel stays open, and you hear your parents having an argument, not with each other, but more about what to do about the door. Your mother seems to be screaming something about closing the door, keeping the door shut, and your father is yelling at her to just hold it while he grabs something. Then there's you hear some furniture moving, and then the door slams shut, somebody screams, and then the radio cuts out.
Mom? Dad? I try, hanging up on the vid screen and calling them again. Over.
Ev might have been
I think
injured, but Rex is the one that really got hurt.
Ah. Too true.
Thank you, Yojinbot.
Thank you, Yoshinbot.
Yeah.
There is no
Thank you,
reply.
Aaron Morrison. I think Yojinbot's just telling us what's up, if I understand correctly.
Well,
Oh,
never mind then.
thank you, Aaron
Thank you, whoever is.
Thank you.
Did it.
Lisa will be back next week, and she'll make sure we don't act like
See
idiots.
ya.
Yeah. Bunch of frickin' just
Yeah,
chimpanzees
she'll
around
try.
here.
I'm sure we'll still manage to act like idiots even when she is around.
Hey, the
but-
computer talked. Thanks. That's cool.
You try and get a hold of your parents, but there's no response. The line, I mean, like, you can tell that it's dialing out, and it's just nobody's answering. You try again, and this time it seems like the storm is starting to have some kind of interference on it. And you have the thought maybe you could call Oli's family because they live right next door or something. But by then, the storm has picked up to a place where communication is now it's
Wouldn't Ollie
unlikely
have
that you'll be
also
able to get
taken
back on.
electrical damage for being downed when the storm started?
Wouldn't Oli have also taken electrical damage for being downed when the storm started? And that's a thank you from my eyesight is so terrible. I have to get so
Streamlabs.
freaking close. No, I think Merkwerky. Merkwerky.
Hey, thank you, Merkwerky. Yeah, Oli got a zap.
Work,
Yeah, he caught a zap.
work,
It's not as bad as Ev, but he definitely caught a zap. It's dangerous.
Well, and he
Shimmer
kind of
skimming.
went out early. Like, they were able to, like, pull him out. He went down pretty early, I think. So he was able to get out, I think, before the worst of it.
What
That's
are
I
you
think
justifying yourself now, huh, Rex? You're like,
Listen!
you were so sad, and that's
Ev was
sad.
cool,
Now you're
but
like,
Oli
all right,
was a
he's
stupid
fine.
jerk.
He went down. He can walk it off. He can walk it off.
He was always stealing my toys. And I only had 2.
Okay, well, just,
Oli sucks.
you can't pick and choose when you feel bad about beating up other children.
All right, so you're standing on the cliff.
Sure,
you're
I
looking out over
can.
the sea, and your vid screen is no longer functioning. The last thing you heard was your mother screaming about keeping the door closed, and then silence. What do you do?
Close the door.
I take a minute to collect myself, and then I just start running full speed back to the house.
Okay, you run off into the storm. We're gonna jump to Tag.
Classic Rex, always running. Running from your problems, running to your problems.
Look, she's the Tom Cruise of this group, all right?
That's true.
Best at everything that she ever tries at. Is that pretty much?
Well, just constantly running.
Yeah. All right.
Doing any kind of job, just running.
Deeply involved with questionable organizations.
Also true.
There you
And hanging off of helicopters. So Tag, you talk to me about what it's like growing up in the monastery, being outside of the training regiment.
It's all right. I think that Tag is really happy to have a home. He knows that he's not special. And that's cool. It's really cool that all these other parallels got chosen to be here. And it's so cool that they have these incredible magical talents. You know, he's seen his friend Lee. She can just conjure this whip of fire. It's the most incredible thing. And then he's happy to help out where he can because he gets to have a full life of friends and playmates. And it's not always... You know, they're busy. They've got summoner training, obviously, but they see each other over meals, and they get to. He sleeps in the dormitory with them, with all the summoners of his age group, and I think he's formed real friendships. There's one parallel in particular. Her name is Violet. She's the parallel that's assigned to Bryn, Lisa's summoner, and she's really, really always looking out for Tag, and she's always trying to include him, and she's always trying to convince him to join in where he can, and to to practice outside of the hours. She shows him everything that she learns in her training, and she's a friend.
What do you know of the night that you showed up at the monastery?
I don't think they told me anything about it. I think that they left out a lot of the mysticism, that they said that I was an orphan, that they took in, and I'm really grateful to have been given a home and to be cared for by the old guard and really every part of the order.
Did they ever show you the scroll that was left with you?
No, never.
And the powers that were evident upon your discovery, have they Are they something that you're aware of? Have they made an appearance in your life in a way that you can track?
I think they must have, yeah, but I think there's, kind of for me, this is about to be an overshare. For me, at least, I don't want to speak for everyone, but puberty is very alarming. Your body is changing in a lot of ways that you don't know what is normal and what is shameful, and so it's very confusing, I think. And I think he knows that it's not, everyone else around has their element, and he just has this, they're painting in brilliant streaks of amber and blue, and he's just this kind of splotchy mess of color. He's the Jackson Pollock painting to a Mark Rothko. Zing that one on in from out of nowhere.
Which is a reference we all understand, of course.
Yeah, I don't know where, sometimes I question everything I say sometimes. So I think that he sees it as undisciplined and messy and embarrassing, and it lacks the cleanliness, it lacks the discipline and the sort of clean zip of the magic he sees, or that he knows that he sees around him. He doesn't see anything like what he's doing, and he doesn't. It's not. It's not. What's the word I'm looking for? Not autonomous. It's not of his will. Things happen. He gets too close to someone else using magic, and
Voluntary?
it kind of sucks. Say it again.
Involuntary?
Involuntary. Yeah. It. He just feels like this kind of lightning rod for other accidents and misfortunes. So he's kind of learned to be careful and to sort of really just clamp down on it and control it and lock it down and push it down as much as possible, because he doesn't want to get kicked out. He doesn't want to lose his home. He doesn't want to be outcast for having this, what could very well be a magical abomination. He doesn't know, no one talks about it. He doesn't know what it is.
Does he talk about it to Violet?
I think that, I don't know. Do you want to find out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Violet's been coming to you because she is having trouble with her training. She is in tune with. Were you saying that Violet is the one who gets the flame whip, or that is somebody else and Violet does her own thing?
I said a different name, but I think if Violet is Bryn's parallel, then yeah, she should be Fire Whip. And sure. Let's figure out what she's struggling with, because I also think she's great. I think she's like valedictorian, top of her class.
Sure. I believe it, but I think that everybody, especially in that position, is going to have something that they're insecure about, and the higher the stakes, the more detrimental that can feel. So if Violet is coming to you because you're outside the order of things, you don't represent a rival because you're not a parallel who's been bound to a summoner or on a track for destiny, you are a safe place to come, especially to talk about weakness or fear. And so Violet is having trouble creating a psychic link. It's something that is unique to the parallel order in that they are emphatic, and that is one of the few things that the order has as a set structure of classes towards magic. Normally these parallel have been selected because they are unique, but there is something that they teach, and it's an opening of the mind which allows for a psychic link. And Violet is having trouble finding the ability to open herself and feel vulnerable with someone enough to create that. And so there are certain checklists that has to be completed until your oath is activated. And this is one of the lingering items on hers, and it's kind of up to the parallel initiate to decide when to be tested. And so she's been dragging her feet and not doing this because she feels like it's a hang up for her. And so I think that she's been coming to you after hours, waking you up, and you guys sneak off to one of those towers that are around and finding some time to find a way for her to achieve this psychic link. And why don't you just set this scene for us?
Okay. So Vi and I are both scampering along the upper walls, and the old guard who patrols, they're not fools. They're well trained. They're ex-parallels. They're good at what they do, but they're older and they're in a routine and they've been in this forever, so they aren't exactly at the top of their game. And we've found a little bit of fun in the past of the sport of sneaking around to them and getting to the top of the East Tower. The East Tower is unique because it's the only tower around the. We keep calling it a monastery. Let's keep it up.
Mm-hmm.
That is uncovered, so it's just sort of it's almost like a large stone bowl with a. You ever go to like a science museum as a kid and you can drop the penny down that thing that'll just run in circles until it funnels to the bottom? It's kind of like that, and that hole at the bottom is a ladder that you can climb up, and then it's just this stone bowl with no covering, and we would go lie and sit in that and just look up at the stars all night. And so the scene opens and we're up there, and I reach into my coat and I pull out 2 giant garlic knots, still warm, that I had taken from the kitchen. I had just finished up my dishes duty. I stay in the kitchen for about an hour or two after dinner ends, cleaning up, and I hand her one and keep one for myself and tear off a piece and start eating.
She does the same. She says, I don't know. I'm tired. I feel like I'm not gonna be able to do it again, and I'm getting inside my own head.
Bye. Getting inside one's head, that is the very idea of what you're trying to do. Come on, you are the best freaking parallel that we have here, Vi. You are so good.
I'm worried that if I can't find a way to open myself to my summoner, all of my skills and all of my hard work, all of those things that you think makes me so good will mean nothing, because the bond is what's important. The empathy, the ability to look inside them and see their imperfections and show them mine, and realize that the puzzle pieces that we are fit together in those empty spots. It's what they keep telling us. It's what all the texts say.
Vi, he says, and he holds out his hand, and it's not at all patronizing or like he's trying to cut her off. It's full of love. And he says, Vi, you are not the things that you can do. You are the parallel that you are, not because of your skills, but because of the core of your humanity. I'm listening to you right now and last night and the night before that talk about how much you want to serve your bond, and isn't that exactly what being a parallel is? And he takes a breath and he says, Vi, you got this. And he holds his 2 hands out, palms up. And this is sort of an inside gesture for them, that often when she's in trials and she's running the circuits, he'll just be standing on the sidelines with a group of the old guard or the masters or the other initiates watching. And he knows when she's getting kind of antsy and in her head, so he'll just breathe in and hold out his open palms. And she clocks it. She knows, okay, he sees me. He knows I got this. I've got this. So he holds out his open palms. And then he says, listen. But he doesn't move his mouth. It's a voice that appears inside her head. It says, listen, not to me, but to the movement of elements through your body. It's partly your heartbeat. It's partly blood moving through. It's partly your bones growing by fractional, imperceptible amounts on a molecular level. But it makes noise. And also, your thoughts, they live in your body. They're not here, they're everywhere. That desire to serve, that's a hole in your stomach. There's cold air rushing through that. I know that feeling. I promise we all know that feeling. That lives there. Every thought you have, every fear, every worry, every concern, it's in your body. You have access to it. Listen to it. And he takes a deep breath and he kind of exhales in the way that she knows from years of friendship is him saying, my guard is down. You've got this. I have total trust in you. And he kind of gives her the nod.
She whispers, I can hear you, but it's like you're at the bottom of a deep well. And while you're sitting there breathing in, you can, for the first time, because you've done this several nights, you know, you've spent time on this. It's something that's driving her crazy, and every second that she can get you away in the evening, she does. And so you've done this several times. This is the first time that you've been able to talk to her before, and she's heard some of what you said, but in this moment, you know that she did hear you. But that sensation she just described of hearing you as if you were at the bottom of a well, you do feel this link to her form. It's like a peephole from your psyche into hers, and it's imperfect, and it doesn't have much strength to it, and you can tell it's because there's no reciprocation, but you have reached out to her with more than just language. You've reached out to her with some essence that you can't define, and you have connected to her. And you know that with this foot in the door, you could potentially flesh out this link on your own. And you will roll use magic.
That is a 8.
Okay. You're gonna be able to do it. You're just gonna need to pick one glitch. Do you got them up in front of you?
I do. Yes. Let's do. Let's do inflict harm.
Okay. So she cringes and she feels this connection form. It's like you've just taken her face and breathed into her mouth, and it immediately solidifies. But you can tell it is 100% being manifested by you. She doesn't really
excited. Oh, keep going.
Yeah. It's just that she doesn't have any. There's no reciprocation. There's no secondary connection. You've just intruded. You haven't created a link.
And I feel that I know she has the power, and I know that she has the spirit for this, and I know she has the heart for this, and I'm not frustrated with her. I'm never frustrated with her. She's trying so hard, but I don't know what it is that's stopping her. And so, you know, it's almost like I'm like, you know, in a miner in a shaft, just kind of carving open that space, and I can feel myself. It's not on purpose. I'm not trying to make a violation. I just want her to be able to use the powers that I know she has, and so it's Vi, you've got this, and when I don't feel that coming back, I just start to. It's nothing I've done before. I don't even know what it means, but it's almost like I'm reaching through that channel and just trying to pull whatever is in her to the surface.
You can feel that whip of flame, like it's curled around her heart, ready to lash out when she needs it. And it swells to the point where you can feel the heat in this connection that you've made. It's some strange energy that's starting to feel as if it's in the space between flesh and muscle, and that gap. And she, startled, opens her eyes, pushes you away, and very confused says, Tag, I'm sorry. I know it wasn't right. I know it wasn't right, but I did it. I did it. I connected to you.
Yes! You found it. That's the seed. That's the proof that you can do it.
Yeah, I did it. I created that bond, and I could feel it. It was so powerful. I felt like I was just, like you were seeing right into my brain. I did it. I pulled that out of nowhere.
See, what am I freaking telling you? Best parallel in the order.
You guys have a wind down from this moment. You're eating garlic. You're sitting there. She's babbling. Over the course of this, before the shot fades out, you start to get the impression that the experience you had of jumping into her brain and creating this thing on your own and getting no reciprocation, it seems like maybe she wasn't picking up on that, and that connection that she felt, she misunderstood and thought maybe she'd created it, that maybe she'd had this breakthrough. And as she's sitting there babbling, before the camera fades away, she tells you, I'll set my trial tomorrow. I'll go in for my trial tomorrow. I can finally do it. Once I do this, I'll be able to prove to them that I can be bound to a summoner.
And I know in my heart that it's like when you help your friend cheat, but they don't even know that you're helping them. I know that I've done this, but it's for the right reasons. She is so good, and it's just that she doesn't believe in herself. If she saw that she could do it, if she knew that she could do it, then that doubt would be eliminated, and the only thing standing in her way, herself or her idea of her own limitations, would be gone. And so I maybe it wasn't the right thing to do, but I feel good about it. She's ready.
Okay, we cut to black. We now jump to the professor. You are in a very swanky laboratory, more expensive equipment than you've ever seen. It puts the university where you studied to shame. The company's people contacted your people, which is just you, and they set up a meeting so they could see a demonstration. They've helped you load in your gear. How much stuff do you need to do this process of distilling magic into an Eric's?
Surprisingly, not very much. It's mostly just me and some doodads and bric-a-brac I have in my pack.
Okay. I'm just going to say this because I forgot to. Everybody mark down experience for all your failures. This will count towards your level up. So what they're going to do is they've asked you, the woman who interviewed you, you found out her name was Kavanaugh. She is present. She is taking a subdued role in this. There are her superiors, as she mentioned. They are men and women who are in very expensive but subtle suits and lab coats. They are standing on the other side of some protective glass, but it's not a reflective surface. You can see them. You've met them. They all shook your hand. They introduced themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They've told you that once you're set up, they're going to just observe.
How do you do?
Very nice to meet you, sir. Very much. Oh, we're very excited to have you here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. How are you feeling going into this?
I feel excited about it. I feel as though the first bit was kind of like, I mean, are they going to like me? Are they going to like what I do? I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. I've been doing this in the darkness, away from people, and everyone's been saying like, yeah, good job and good marks and like good grades and everything, but like I don't know if it's actually applicable to anybody and if they actually want it. And so after that other encounter, I feel a lot more confident that like, okay, yes, they're interested, and they like this process that I've cultivated, and so I feel pretty good.
Cool. They've asked you if you have a preference on the item you will be distilling magic from and the element. Do you?
I brought a couple of different things. I wasn't sure what exactly they wanted to see. I have this blanket from the lightning world, which I don't know if it's been named yet. That's it's commonly placed over people who are injured in a lightning storm, and it has some magical properties that I can extract from, or if they have something that they'd like to see. I'm not exactly sure what fire, what kinds of stuff a fire imbued object would look like. I'm not exactly sure about that.
Sure, let's go with fire. They take the blanket and they say, this is an interesting choice because of its restorative properties and defensive properties. What we're interested in seeing is something a bit more volatile. And they motion to somebody who brings out a cart, and on it are these large rods. You recognize them immediately. They're called ember rods, and they're used in mining equipment as part of large-scale combustion engines. If you've ever seen a drill the size of a city that's coring into these planets, these are the part of the system that makes the power possible. So they're these large rods that are glowing red, and you can actually see little flecks of flame dancing off of them. And they're in a safety container. There is one of these rods, an ember rod, and they bring it out in front of you. First, we're going to have you roll Distill Magic.
All right.
And then based on the results, I'm going to tell you what the parameters are, and you're going to describe to me the scene in which you demonstrate the process for these people.
Okay. Should I just do straight up Distill Magic, or area of expertise first?
You do not yet have the +1 from area of expertise, simply because this is before you've become an expert in the field. You are well learned and very competent, but not an expert. So you're just going to roll Distill Magic.
Got it. Cool. All right. Oh, not great. So that would be a 7.
Okay, that's actually good. It's a mixed success. Just for the sake of the stream, this is a custom move that we created for Brian's character. It's called Distill Magic. If you would like to isolate the magical property of an enchanted item, gear, artifact, machine, and create an Eric's to imbue other weapons with it, roll plus sharp, which is what he just did. He got a mixed success. So on a mixed success, you successfully distill the magical property into a single Eric's, which can be used to enchant any item, but there were some complications. So you'll add the enchantment plus 2 positive tags and 1 negative tag. For the sake of this flashback, because it will not be a gear item, we're going to skip that. You just have some complications in this. Why don't you describe it to me? What they actually tell you is an assistant comes over and retrieves the blanket that you used, that you brought in for the experiment. And they say, this is very interesting, and we think that it has some unique properties, but what we'd like to see you do is distill the fire element from these ember rods and then imbue them into the blanket and tell us what it does.
Okay. All right. No problem at all. So he gets out his tools, and which one of them is sort of a rudimentary prototype of kind of a glove sort of thing that it's not the full glove. It mostly just encapsulates his palm, and there's kind of like a black piece here, and there's a little spiral kind of like wire that's going to his backpack, and he's flipping some switches and turning some knobs, and he's getting closer to the rod, and he says "Oh, whew. I wasn't expecting it to be so hot when you get close to this thing." Wiping sweat away from his face, and it's a lot difficult, more difficult than he thought. He didn't know that the thing that he was going to be extracting was kind of going to be resonating this heat or anything like that. So that's kind of like tripping up a little bit. That's probably why he didn't roll so well. But he stands there for a little less than a minute. And it seems to be kind of he holds his hand like this right over the rod, and as he's sweating, and it kind of is building into a crescendo, and you can hear it's like an audible pop, like you can kind of hear it when the Eric's has eventually crystallized and popped into the socket in his hand or in his glove.
When it happens, the ember rods extinguish. They're now just metal. It seems like the heat even has been sucked from them. And you now have a red Eric's in your glove. Everyone looks at you expectantly, and you know that they're waiting for you to finish the process by imbuing the fire energy into the blanket.
I allow them to take a look at it and pass it amongst themselves, kind of feel it in their hands, like feel the weight of it. And I look at kind of the way the light kind of refracts in it. And the fire Eric's is not necessarily as perfectly. It looks kind of like more like a flame would, like if it was if a flame was just instantaneously captured into kind of like a physical deal. So anyway, they pass that around, and I get to the last person, and I'm just kind of taking a little scope of the room, with my low amount of social skills, and see if people are into it, or people seem bored.
They are very impressed, and they've had fun looking at the Eric's. You see wheels turning in their mind. They're not just happy because you're showing them something cool. They're running the numbers on what you're doing. And you see that they've already made the decision to hire you. That the rest of this will just be a formality. The fact that you just distilled magical energy into a crystal, into a fuel source specifically, they're just crunching the number possibilities in their mind. And they look happy, but they look happier than they should.
I don't know if he would pick up on that. He would just kind of see a lot of grinning faces and be like, "Yeah, all right, killing it. Okay, good." And so with as much flourish as he can, he kind of takes the Eric's and kind of struts over to the other thing. To the blanket, and realizes he hasn't built any kind of socket into the blanket, and that's going to take some time. So he quickly kind of puts on a little device that he has in this case, that can kind of attach itself to an object and kind of seep it into it, and it also has a little area where you can kind of put an Eric's. So he finds a corner of the blanket, and you see the blanket sort of shimmer as the little device socket is placed on it, and then he kind of like a really bad kid's magician, just kind of watch, lets everyone see it, and then hovers it a little bit over it, and then drops it, and there's this sucking sound of it plopping into the socket. And then a similar shimmer of energy goes through the blanket, but this time instead of electrical, it is red. It has kind of these orange and red embers, much more akin to fire.
Okay. While Kavanaugh, the woman who you're familiar with from the first interview, steps forward and she says, "While we prepare the final portion of your demonstration, just ballpark, what do you suspect the properties of this new blanket would be?"
I tend to sort of tweak my these Eric's that I do in the direction of defense. So I'm guessing that once this has been placed as it just has, it will give a shielding sort of spell, similar to the way some magic users can use shield. I've seen the process done a couple of times. It's sort of done with this sort of blanket of sand when the object is either shot or hit with some sort of melee equipment or something.
Sure. And if we were to put this into, say, a weapon, what would it do?
Well, yeah. I mean, you could use it for offensive. I mean, if I'm almost so inclined, but it really has almost endless possibilities in different kind of formats. And he kind of rambles on for like another minute, and they probably have the impression that like he's not really terribly interested in leaning his process in the directions of arms dealing or
Sure.
offensive stuff. But so he's really doing his best to kind of like let everyone know the other capabilities of this process.
Okay. The inert ember rod is rolled out, as is the blanket. They tell you that they'd like to take a look at it and test it, if that's okay. And they'll return it to you. They take that out. And then a much larger box is wheeled in. It's actually covered in a sheet. And you can hear some strange noises from inside. And they roll it into the center of the demonstration place. And one of the technicians removes the sheet, and you can see that there's actually a type of reptile inside. And it has crystals in the scaling that go on its chest and up onto its back. And on the spines that are along its spine, there are little crackles of electricity. And Kavanaugh steps forward again and she says, "Yes, Doctor, as we said during the initial interview, we are very interested in what you can do and to see what the limits of your distillation processes are. So if you wouldn't mind, we'd love to see you distill the lightning element from this lizard."
Yes. Of course. I actually hadn't had any time to perfect this. I mean, after our other conversation I had, yeah, you were talking about creatures, and I don't really have any on hand. So I couldn't do any practical tests, but I did kind of go over the hypothesis of how this would work. And I think I'd be able to tweak the process just a bit to do towards creatures. So, I mean, if you all just stand back, you might want to I don't know, throw that blanket over you just in case. I don't know what's going to happen just now, but all right, here we go.
Sure. Roll distill magic.
All right. Oh, so much better. 12.
Okay. Will you please tell us how you perform the experiment and specifically what happens to the creature when you remove the lightning element from it?
All right. Let's see.
You don't have to go into great detail. Just
Sure.
an overview would suffice. I'm not trying to.
No, that's okay. A similar little situation as before, where I take a little prototype for like a socket kind of thing and attach it to the creature. Have a difficult time actually like holding it down. But once I'm able to like get into the right around his spinal column, right around here, like and pop it in there, then the creature kind of like sort of slows down and becomes a little bit more lethargic. I'm not exactly sure if it's because of what it's doing or trying to see what's on its back, or I don't know exactly. But I do the same sort of thing, holding my hand with the glove attachment on, and a very similar sound happens with concluded by a popping sound.
I'm jumping in.
Go ahead.
The pop happens, and the camera stays on your face. We see that your hand now has a glowing yellow Eric's of lightning energy embedded into the glove receptacle. And the camera holds there as your expression looks almost confused. The camera turns around to the group of executives who have come here to see this demonstration, and they all smile. Blackout. We're going to close the loop on each of these with a brief scene. We're going to start with Rex. Rex, yours is you have run a very long way, and when you get back to your colony, you are bedraggled, sweating. Your clothes have been shredded by the long grass. You've lost your pack. It doesn't matter. You're just barreling towards home. When you arrive to what would be kind of a gate, a wall that would let you into the hub, the little civilization hub where you and your family and all your neighbors live, the door is hanging off of the hinges, and there are some rather large gouges in them. When you walk in to the compound, for lack of a better word, the hub, what do you see? And mind you, that it's a very big storm. The storm is on now, and all of the protective rods that have been erected on the walls and in the fields are catching lightning and charging these batteries underneath. Besides the storm atmosphere, what do you see inside the walls of your civilization hub?
The wind is whipping all around me. It's tearing at my hair and my clothes. I can barely stand upright. It's so strong, and the air is just full of, every hair on my body is just standing on end because of the electricity that I can feel. And I look around, and it's as though a bomb has gone off. Like, everywhere I look, there are windows that have been blasted open. There are doors hanging off their hinges. Is that someone lying on the ground? It's hard to see because there's so much debris that's flying everywhere, and so it's almost like a heavy snowstorm. Visibility is so bad, and I'm just trying to not lose my bearings and figure out where my parents' house is.
Yeah, as you're walking through, it is difficult to navigate. It seems like things have been torn down by something rather large, and then the storm has started to kick all of this debris into the air. There's a strange smell. It's something similar to the smell, kind of like ozone when you're out near the lightning fields. You can smell this erasure of like air energy. It's like when lightning cracks, it kind of leaves a gap in reality, and then that gap is quickly filled. That gap has a smell that you're used to. This is like that, only so much stronger. And as you're clawing through the debris towards your house, you do notice this fluid that's kind of on certain things, in the gouges that are in the walls and on the ground puddled up. It looks like when you see oil in the sunlight and there's that sheen of color on the top, if you were to just get that and remove the dark absence of the oil and just have this shimmering sheen of a color, and it's thick, and it seems like the smell is coming from that. When you get to your house, you can see that the door, which you had overheard in the radio call about being propped closed, is off its hinges. You walk into the room. The camera is in reverse. The audience only sees your face, your reaction to what you are seeing. It is, as you clawed through the wreckage, you suppose what you expected to see when you opened the door, but no easier to comprehend having expected it. And you are silent for a long time. You turn around and you walk out of the house and into the storm. And the camera fades out. Tag. Violet has told you that morning at breakfast that her trial for empathy for the telepathic link will be taking place right after the first round of training. And you've been invited to see it. The invite is unofficial. You know that no one is allowed to watch these trials. They are very private. But she also knows that in your janitorial duties, you have come across many secret entrances, side paths, hidden corridors, and she knows that you will have no trouble getting into the arena to see her trial. And so she lets you know when it is. Um, will you just... I'm going to take the lead here for a second. She is... When you get there, you know that it's about to start. You haven't heard what any of the masters have said. They are 3. Their sex is indeterminate. They have hoods that cover their faces. You are under the impression that the masters, these 3 masters, are a rotating cast of the old guard who assume the role of ceremonial leadership when necessary, and that's why their identities are hidden and their voices are masked during ceremonies. There's no one in the monastery that you haven't met, and so they must be a rotating cast. There is all 3 masters present, and they're the only other ones besides Violet in this room. It's she is standing facing them. Next to her, there is another initiate, someone who you are familiar with from just passing, someone whose dishes you've probably done 1,000 times or whose soup you've ladled into their bowl. They are blindfolded and they are standing next to her. You can see that the masters are, one of them is holding a very delicate looking blade, as though a letter opener were weaponized, and standing about 20 paces from Violet and this blindfolded initiate. And tell me what's going through your head.
This is the first trial I watched. It seems a lot more formal than I expected. I know that we are kind of a old-fashioned order here, but what's important is that she's able to establish a psychic connection. It seems very silly. They know how good she is. She's been knocking everyone's socks off for years. So I don't... I understand the masters. I understand the rotating order for masters, but I don't quite know what is up with all the other elements of the scene. The room that we're in, it's kind of just a square, maybe 20 yards by 20 yards by 20 yards square stone room. And I've been in here a million times before, and there's nothing special about it. I sweep. There's some there's a wooden stool in the corner. But as this ceremony begins, it almost doesn't even occur to me at first, but the stone walls, it's as if they're getting brighter and brighter and cleaner. And suddenly these 4 stone walls, the stone floor, the stone ceiling, they've almost become mirrors, not perfectly smooth, but reflecting images in an infinity of themselves forever and ever and ever, up and down and in every direction. Is it a piece of tech? Is it a piece of magic? It's nothing I've ever seen before at the monastery.
Is it clear to you if this effect is visible to the others in the room, or if it's just something that you are seeing?
I can't see Vi's face. So the 3 masters aren't moving. They're hooded. They are not reacting. The other initiate is blindfolded. That's all I can tell.
Okay. One of the masters steps forward, the one who's taking kind of the leadership role, and says, Violet, you will now demonstrate your ability to create an empathetic link to another. The test is simple. The one who is bound to you cannot see to protect themselves. You will communicate to them using no words, only thought, when they are to move out of the way of the blade. The other master steps forward holding this knife, and the original master says, form your link now. You watch as Vi, completely still at first, begins to tremble. You've seen this before because you've spent so many nights learning this skill with her. You've seen that this is what she starts to do when she gets inside her own head and can't get out. She can't get into another's head. And she's having trouble creating this psychic link. The master with the blade steps forward again, raises it as though about to throw it. And you know now, as Vi is starting to squirm, that she has not created a link to her other. The master holds his wrist back to throw the knife. What do you do?
As this is happening, I know that she can do it. I saw in her face last night that she believed in herself, and if she believes in herself, she is the most powerful parallel that I know. And I wait, and I see her trembling, and I've seen this before, and I know that it'll pass because this time is different. And even though her back is turned to me, I take a deep breath in, and I hold out my palms, and I take a deep breath out, and I just hope that she can feel this. And I just want to take this love that I have, this familial love, this deep, deep care for her, and send it out her way. Let it be a reassurance that she has nothing to worry about. I mean, these masters, it's this performance, this masquerade. They're not going to hurt an initiate. That's absurd. That's absurd, right? I'm pretty sure that that's absurd, but as time keeps moving, she keeps shaking, and I don't know what's happening, and I know that I can't see her fail. And then she bows her head, and I can see her shaking her hands out, and I know that when she's shaking her hands out, she's lost it, and I can see the little wisps of fire start to come in her fingertips, and that means that she's not even paying attention to her power, and the master's getting even closer with the blade, and at this point I don't know what's happening, and see the master raise his arms, and I'm so sure that it's nothing bad can possibly happen, that it's just a test, that it's just a trick, but I don't know, and I don't want to see Vi fail, so I open the connection, but there's no time. It's just a second before that master is going to flick the blade, and I open it, and it opens so fast, I just bust through to that connection to her, and as I do it, I feel like I'm being sucked through a tunnel into her, and as I sort of, my consciousness realizes within her, I just see suddenly her face in a void of nothing else, and it's this harrowing, raspy inhale as her eyes go wide, and I see purple start to trickle in her veins up her neck, and she's just looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and her mouth is open, and there's no sound.
Roll use magic.
Nine.
Choose a glitch.
Observe another place or time.
You see her, and all of a sudden, your vision fractures in this you get immediate vertigo. It's just like you're seeing so many different things at once. And what you're seeing are the same event happening simultaneously in thousands of different scenarios, as though you are looking into those mirrors that are repeating themselves all over. And you see yourself, and you jump into Vi, and you create a linking portal, and it jumps into the initiate next to her with a blindfold, and you say, move! And they move, and the blade flies by. You see Vi, and you force her to just relax, and then you let go, and she jumps into the initiate, and she says, move! And he moves, and the blade flies by. You just shout, move! And they move, and the blade flies by, and you keep reacting, and the initiate keeps hearing you, and the blade keeps flying by every time somebody says move. And then you see Vi, and you're certain that this is the timeline you belong in. And she looks at you, and she says, why'd you connect with me, not him? And the knife hits the initiate. Blackout. Professor, you've been working for the company for a long time. You have proven yourself time and time again. The distillation process that you've been developing to isolate the magical property of certain elements and then distill them into an Erix has so many applications. It's largely all theoretical and prototype because it is still the device you use is one of the few, and the things that you're trying to do are help engineers fabricate new devices, but there's been a hang up and they can't produce them on a mass scale. So you're still doing experiments, but it's really about a very small scale. What can one direct application of an Erix do to this item? What can it do to this item? And you just can't make enough Erixes for them to do what they want to do, but they have a lot of faith in you. And the process of creating new distillation methods is promising. And so you've moved up in the ranks. You met your mentor through this course. He's kind of helped you navigate the social end of the company. His name's Milk. And Milk. And Milk Felling. And
I've been the edge of my seat so many times tonight.
Hey. All
Aaron
right.
Morrison, back again.
Thanks very much, Aaron. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Milk has helped you navigate the social aspect of this, the political aspect of this. You have no problem developing these technologies and using them and creating new experiments and new avenues to pursue. You're often pointed towards weapon technology. You do a decent job of shirking that, but they are using your technology to make weapons. You are making a lot of money. You have a lot of job security. You have people working under you. You have your own lab. You've been doing this for a long time now. You are called into Kavanaugh's office one day. She is in a very different office than the one where you first met her. She's moved out of personnel and into a more managerial position. She's actually overseeing a lot of the projects that you have dealings with. So your relationship to Kavanaugh, the woman who initially interviewed you for this job, is budding. It's one of the first times you felt maybe you have a friend besides Milk, and she calls you into her office, and she's now on the 98th floor, very high up. And much like the first time you saw her, there's a rocket launching on the other side of the compound. It's a common occurrence, you've learned. They're sending a lot of stuff into space, and they're doing so using void energy, and the energy of the planet, which you've helped them harness, has helped exponentially in fueling these craft and making them faster and safer. But she calls you into the office and she says, "Please, doctor, have a seat."
I sit down.
I've been reviewing the work that we've been doing over all these years, and it would be very foolish of me not to recognize the role you played in my standing with the company. My success is largely based on the technology that you've been developing and the small hand I had in just pointing them in your direction and really just conducting that first interview. I think about it often. Do you?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, I'm able to do exactly what I've been wanting to do for years, and I'm being given the resources in order to do it in the best way possible. And
Tips for the greatest group
mostly
of
to you.
storytellers
I appreciate
this
it.
girl has had the privilege of working with and now watching. Bryn says buckle up for next week, buckos.
Thanks, Bryn.
Thanks, Brian. Smalls.
Wait a minute. Wait a gosh darn minute here.
So she says, it's been easy all these years, but things are changing within the company. Well, easy to enjoy the work that we're doing, easy to find a direction to head in.
Yeah.
Easy to rely on you for some of the more difficult tasks, some of the more previously considered impossible things that we are now doing. You've made my life easy, and you've made the life of the citizens of this system easy and safe and viable. A lot of the technology that we have used to keep our people safe on these other less hospitable worlds where the elements are more volatile and more dangerous and they harbor dangerous creatures. The things you've done in the field of defense have been incredible. But when I first brought you into this office, we covered a variety of topics, and many of them we've addressed in the work that we've done, but there's just one possible avenue that I would love to explore, and I feel like I have the perfect opportunity to do so.
Oh,
Doctor,
please.
we've got a mission for you.
A mission?
Yes. We're going to send you on a diplomatic babysitting detail, for lack of a better word. We're going to put you on a ship with a heir apparent to the fire elements planet Summoner Line. We're going to get you into a position where you will be in charge of her safety. And I feel as though this will open the door to some of the more theoretical experiments we've been circling since these projects started.
Wow. That's a wonderful opportunity. Thank you very much. I mean, it's been my dream to go off world for the longest time. I've never actually been able to do it because I've been pulled away and entrenched for so long. This is a fantastic opportunity. But you said defense. I don't really. I'm not a soldier. I don't really know exactly how I would be able to help out in that regard.
Oh, we feel that with aid of some of the items that you've been creating, some of the technology, the weapons, the defensive capabilities, your ability to improvise in the field, largely what we'd like to see you do is take the technology you've been developing in a lab and use it for the very first time in the field. We want to see what your magical distillation can do on the fly. Is it something that we could outfit our soldiers with, our security details with, something that we could give to our engineers to use in emergency situations? We'd like to see you, planet side, using this in less structured environments to see how it holds up.
Well, yes, absolutely, yes, of course. I mean, it does. It will take a lot of those kind of practical applications and tests in the field in order to be able to kind of like compartmentalize and maybe I don't, for lack of a better word, dumb it down, because it actually does on the fly take a lot of calculations that one needs to have some. You know what? I'm babbling. I apologize. Yes, I would like to do this. Yes. When do we leave?
Very soon, within the week. We're still finalizing the details, but I think that this will also present an emerging opportunity. The little that we know of the Summoner families, as they are protective of their lineage and their capabilities, their mystique is as useful to them as their talents, has shown us that what they're actually doing is channeling the elemental energy from the planets themselves. Something about their DNA, their line, their blood enables them to tap into this. It's a link that they form, and then they're able to pull the energy and do all of the things that they are able to do with it. It's a very small population in this entire system who has that capability, and most of them belong to these summoner lines. We feel that such a wealth of energy, a direct channel to a planet's reserve of power, is ripe to be tapped. And we feel that the distillation process that you've been working on might have use in this endeavor. We'd like you to do everything you can to ingratiate yourself with this summoner.
Okay. I'd be happy to. I mean that ingratiate. That sounds almost like there's a kind of an ulterior motive. I mean, like just get to know this person and become on friendly terms with them, right? I mean, like I'm making a contact.
Absolutely, that would be a wonderful start. What we'd like is for you to establish trust or even reliance, where this person will feel indebted to you or the company for the things that you do. And if possible, we'd like for you to manufacture a situation in which you might be able to test the full potential of your magical distillation properties on this direct channel to a planet's reserve of energy.
Well, that is quite an opportunity. Of course. Yeah. I mean, the company wants this to be done. I can put my expertise to it.
She stands and she points to the rocket, which is now sailing far into the sky. It's merely just a trail of smoke and a speck. And she says over her shoulder, without looking, yes, I feel that this mission is going to be an exciting time for all of us. And blackout.
Dun dun dun.
Wow.
All right.
Man, oh man. That was a lot of fun.
In our next flashbacks, are we just gonna do the flashbacks where we go to like amusement parks and do mini golf?
Sure.
Yes.
Just putting the tail on the donkey and having drinking games and things like that. Sure.
Yeah.
As the sun sets and the light in Jesse's room gets dimmer and dimmer, his ideas get darker and more sinister. But you could just see that smile, just like, yeah, that love is taken away.
Ingratiate yourself with this summoner.
Yeah. He's just the Cheshire Cat. Just the grin is all that remains.
All right.
Guys, that was really fun.
Excellent.
That was great.
So we can assume that perhaps maybe next week we might pick up where we left off, perhaps?
I'd very much like for you guys to hit the ground running on the preserve and see what creatures and or dangers are waiting for you.
Cool. So this was kind of like a prequel. If this is the first time anyone's watching this, feel free to go and watch our first episode where we all get to meet and then go on a planet, as per mentioned before.
Yeah.
In that case, anything else to say?
I'll say thanks so much to everyone for watching. We appreciate you being here. We love telling this story.
Yeah, it was a blast. Thank you for sticking around and watching us tell it.
Thanks,
we'll see
everybody.
you next week.
And feel free to go onto the Discord and see if, tell us what you liked, tell us what you didn't like, and, get some conversation going. Thanks for everything, everybody.
Yeah, and we're also on Twitter @VoidJumpers, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks, everybody.